What would happen if Earth lost gravity for 5 seconds? For the velvet vacuum, high retention version, Earth feels stable. The ground beneath your feet feels permanent. The sky stays above you. The oceans remain in their basins. Buildings stand, planes fly. Your next step lands exactly where you expect it to. Gravity is so constant, most people never think about it. It is silent, invisible, reliable. But imagine this: no warning, no countdown, no explosion in the sky, and then Earth loses gravity. Not forever, just for 5 seconds. It sounds brief, harmless even, but in those 5 seconds, the world you know would begin to come apart. Gravity is not just the reason things fall. It is the force that gives weight to oceans, anchors the atmosphere, keeps your body connected to the ground, and holds the moon in motion around our planet. It shapes tides. It controls falling rain. It keeps mountains pressing downward and bridges under tension. Remove gravity, and you do not simply make things float. You interrupt the rules that hold Earth together. The first thing you would notice depends on where you are. If you were standing outside, your feet would no longer press into the ground. You and everything not firmly attached would begin to rise, not like in a movie with graceful slow motion. You would keep the motion Earth already has, because right now you are moving with the spinning planet at tremendous speed. At the equator, Earth's surface rotates at roughly 1,670 kilometers per hour. Normally, gravity keeps you locked to that motion. Without it, inertia takes over. The planet keeps turning beneath you. You do not stay safely planted. You begin separating from the surface. For some people, it would feel like a sudden, violent launch. Cars would lift, motorbikes would tumble, loose metal sheets, market stalls, signs, tools, and debris would shoot upward or sideways. Anyone jumping, climbing stairs, riding a bicycle, or standing on a rooftop could be thrown unpredictably. Inside buildings, chairs, televisions, bottles, laptops, and people would leave the floor. Ceiling fans, glass objects, kitchen knives, and furniture would become hazards instantly. 5 seconds would be enough to turn ordinary rooms into chaos. Now think bigger. The oceans. Water is heavy because gravity pulls it downward. Remove that pull, and the sea does not politely stay in place. Massive volumes of water would begin to rise, bulge, and break apart into moving walls, droplets, and surging sheets. Coastlines would experience violent disruption. Ships would lose stable buoyancy. Harbors would become madness. Ports would fill with airborne spray and wreckage. Even after gravity returned, the water would crash back with catastrophic force. The tsunamis afterward could be worse than the 5 seconds themselves. Then there is the atmosphere. The air around you is held close to Earth by gravity. Without gravity for only 5 seconds, the atmosphere would not vanish completely, but it would begin expanding outward. Pressure patterns would break. Winds could surge unpredictably. Dust, smoke, moisture, and debris would be thrown into strange motion. Aircraft would face sudden disaster. Planes rely on predictable lift, controlled airflow, and weight balance. Pilots train for storms, engine failures, and emergencies. They do not train for gravity disappearing. Passengers would rise from seats if unsecured. Objects would fly through cabins. Flight paths would become unstable in an instant. For aircraft near takeoff or landing, the consequences could be deadly. Now consider cities. Elevators would malfunction. Construction cranes would swing wildly. Glass towers would face stresses engineers never designed for. Power lines could snap from sudden movement. Traffic systems would fail, As vehicles lose traction, factories with moving machinery could become lethal. Hospitals would be thrown into crisis. Operating rooms, intensive care units, oxygen lines, precision equipment all depend on stable physical conditions. 5 seconds is enough to interrupt delicate systems that keep people alive. But the most terrifying part may be human reaction. Confusion spreads faster than any force. People would not know what was happening. Some would scream, some would freeze, some would grab the nearest object, some would run, only to find running no longer works. Across the planet, billions of minds would experience the impossible at the same time. For one moment, humanity would share a single emotion, shock, and then gravity returns. Everything that rose now falls. People crash back to the ground. Cars slam onto roads. Glass shatters. Furniture drops. Aircraft fight. Sudden downward force. Water collapses back into basins, coastlines, and cities. Those 5 seconds would end, but the damage would just be beginning. Injuries, fires, flooding, structural failures, communication breakdowns, emergency services would be overwhelmed globally. No nation would be untouched. No city would be fully prepared. Now let's ask the deeper question. Could this actually happen based on everything we understand in physics? No, gravity is not a switch that simply turns off for Earth alone. Gravity emerges from mass and the structure of space-time itself. Earth cannot just lose it for 5 seconds like a power outage. And that matters because this thought experiment reveals something profound. We live every second inside a system so dependable that we mistake it for ordinary. Gravity feels boring only because it never stops. You do not wake up and thank gravity. You do not celebrate that oceans stayed down today, that your home remained on the ground, that the atmosphere did not drift away, that your next step landed exactly where expected. Yet your entire life depends on an invisible force you cannot see, a force strong enough to shape planets, yet subtle enough to be ignored. There is another lesson hidden here. Civilization is built on constants: stable gravity, stable sunlight, stable chemistry, stable time. When those constants hold, cities rise, art is created, children grow, and futures are planned. When constants fail, even briefly, complexity collapses fast. The modern world can look powerful, but it is also delicate. Somewhere in the universe, there may be worlds with harsher gravity, weaker gravity, unstable orbits, violent stars, or conditions where complex life never had a chance. Earth is not just home, it is a rare balance, and most of that balance works silently in the background. So what would happen if Earth lost gravity for 5 seconds? Chaos, flight, collapse, floods, falling skies. A planet reminded how much it depends on invisible laws, and when it was over, humanity might look at the ground differently, not as something guaranteed, but as a gift, because the greatest forces in your life are not always the loudest. Sometimes they are the ones so constant, you only notice them when you imagine them gone. Finally, gravity does not ask for attention. It simply holds your world together every second of every day.